Nurse Practitioner Board exams are intense, incredibly stressful, and have a ton riding on you passing them. Because let's face it, basically they're saying, hey, I want you to know everything about everything, and we're gonna test you in like 150 questions, and if you fail it, well, thanks for the $400, you have to try again. And if you're anything like me, you graduated from NP school, you had like one good day where you were like, yes, I am done. And then the next day you woke up and you were like, I have to take this exam on everything I've ever known. And after I kind of had that one day of bliss, it was seriously like this dark cloud of boards exams was hanging over my head because I knew I have to study for this, but I don't really know how. A huge part of the whole boards exam process is just even knowing how to approach it and how to study for it. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So if you're planning to take your nurse practitioner boards at any time in the future, make sure to stick around for my tips and recommendations for how to pass your nurse practitioner boards on the very first try. I should note that a lot of these tips should apply to different specialties that you're going into, but the exam that I took was the AANP Family Nurse Practitioner exam. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Liz. I'm a new family nurse practitioner, and I very recently took the AANP FNP certifying board exams. Whew, that's a lot of letters. And I make 2 videos a week here on YouTube, sometimes 3, usually 2. One is a vlog kind of showing my progress towards becoming a nurse practitioner, and the other is a nursing video on all sorts of topics. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, make sure to subscribe below and hit the little bell so you never miss a video. I would so love to have you on my adventure. And for the rest of you, welcome back. It's so good to see you again. Now let's get into this. Okay, so as I previously mentioned, I just took the AANP Family Nurse Practitioner exam. And when I was studying for it, I kind of just like grasped at straws in terms of what I was gonna do to prepare for it based on my school's recommendations and some of my friends who had taken the program, what they thought was helpful. So I committed to 3 or 4 study strategies, and then I dabbled in others just so I could come back to you guys and say like, hey, this is what I would definitely do. And if I had a whole new life to live, this is what I would totally do as a new study plan. So that's what I have for you today. We'll talk about what I did, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and what I would do again if I could do this whole process again, but I never want to. It really wasn't very fun, but you can do it. It's gonna be totally fine. You got this. Like I've said so many times, if I can do it, you can do it, for reals. So let's start with what I did. So I did the Fitzgerald live in-person 3-day review. That course has an additional online component that comes after it. So this course is available, like I said, in person. It's also available online only. If you want to hear more specifically about the Fitzgerald course, I'll link a video up here kind of vlogging like my week when I took the Fitzgerald course, and I have a lot of information about my thoughts on it there. But briefly, I'll explain a little here. So the cost of this program was about $450. Weirdly, the cost changes depending on the location. I mean, that makes sense, I guess, for the hotels, and depending on what time of year you buy it. So I would just, if you're planning on getting the Fitzgerald one, I would look, kind of scope out the price, and you do get a discount if a ton of people in your class or whatever sign up for it at the same time. I think that the course overall was a really great review. It was very comprehensive, very detailed, and it came with a really good resource book that was supposed to be your study book. Unfortunately, I never had time to go back and like go through all of it again because it was so extensive, but I do plan on using it when I transition into practice as a reference tool because it had all the up-to-date information and guidelines in this book. So I thought that was really helpful. But guys, to be honest with you, I wouldn't do it again. I thought the speaker was great, the content was good, but the tips and everything that they had in it, the way of teaching was just dry for me. I mean, the speaker really did try to make it like engaging and entertaining, but the mnemonics that they had in there to help you remember the content, the way that the course was just set up and taught, it didn't really resonate with me, and I didn't remember a lot of it. Like, I like memory tricks, and they had a lot of like weird mnemonics, which were like, you know, rabble dabble, and then it all stood for something. I'm like, I'm never gonna remember that rabble dabble is how I'm supposed to remember gout. Like, what? So I needed a little bit more of a creative approach, I guess. But if that's what the type of thing that works for you, if you're great with like random mnemonics, she has about 1 billion in here, so that would be right up your alley. For me, it didn't really work so much. And the online system I found there's like content that you have to do online, I found it very challenging to navigate the website, and you can't skip sections you already feel competent in. So with the AANP, I didn't have to know, you know, Medicaid, Medicare, all of that, but I had to spend hours going through that content to get to the final test. And I really wasn't impressed by that. So again, I did the Fitzgerald, but honestly, if I was doing it again, I wouldn't. The second thing that I used and absolutely loved was the Leak Review book and app. And I'm gonna link those down below in the description box. So I would recommend buying this on Amazon. It's $65-ish, depending on, again, when you buy it. And it comes with the physical book as well as the code for the app. And that gives you full access to the app. And on the app, it's the same content as the book, but you can have it on your phone. So I thought that was really helpful to have all the questions on my phone and the content I had with me on the go. So what is this book? It's a general review book. So it kind of goes over all the body systems step by step. It has 675-ish questions, I wanna say, on all the content. And if you're using the app to do the questions, you can go through, answer them, and then hit, after you answer it and you see the rationale and you're like, what? You could put don't know, kinda know, or totally know. That way, and then you can go back and do like all the kind of knows or all the, oh, I totally don't know that. So you really know that you're learning all the material, not just kind of going through it once and being like, I remember a question way back, but I don't remember what it was. It's in a category for it. You can go back, do all those questions. I thought that was a really great and helpful thing when I studied. In terms of actually going through the book and reading the content, I liked the physical book. I like to highlight. You guys know me. If you want to see my study video, I'll link it up here. You can watch it after this. Really like physically writing and like reading it. So that's just my style. So I would read through the whole chapter on the Leak book. I would highlight what I thought was important just to help me memorize. And then on the exam tips, that's what they're called in the book, I would physically write all those down on take them on my iPad notes under the section heading. So I was like HENT and I wrote all the exam tips down. Those exam tips are golden. So all the information is good. But again, I would write those down and those have a lot of things that really were on the boards exam. I did all the review questions that were with this app. I read the entire book front to cover, and then a few days before the exam, that's what I went back and reviewed were all the exam tips. So I looked at all those notes that I had taken and I just kind of read through all the sections, and it was a really good refresher real quick to just like go over and be like, oh yeah, here's all the key points from all these sections. And again, I really liked this app. I can't recommend it enough. I think this, if you're gonna only do like one thing, this should be your thing because it's super affordable and very comprehensive. And the third thing that I used a lot was Picmonic. I've mentioned in other videos on how I like to study that I use Picmonic in NP school for pharmacology and pathophysiology. And I used it again for pretty much the same purposes for studying for this exam. So if you guys are interested in checking out what that looks like, I'll link that video up here, and I have a 20% off code that I will put in the description box down below. If you guys are interested in trying it out for yourselves, you can always try it out for free as well. It's just like a limited version. I used Picmonic to study for the boards exam for pharm because you have to know so many antibiotics, so many drugs, and I just couldn't hang. So I went into, you can go into like the app and go under board, like FNP Boards Exams, and it will show you, like, you can just do the pharm section. So that's pretty much what I used it for. They have all the sections, but I didn't have time to go through all of them. I really just needed help with the straight memorization for pharmacology, and it gives you an interesting kind of creative approach to remembering all the information, and it really, really did help because I never would have remembered all like what's your cytochrome P450 enzyme? And I was like, whoa, like there's no way. But you have to know that for the boards. So that was really helpful. Okay, so those are the three things that I really committed myself to in terms of studying. Now for the things that I dabbled in. So my friend who took these exams a few years ago lent me her Hollier, Hollier, I think that's how you say it, audio files. She does another review course. And you can take her course online, you can do it in person, but I had the audio files from 2013, so even though they weren't super updated, I listened to them just to see what this lady was like, because a lot of people really recommend her, and I loved it. She was so engaging, she was so creative, she teaches through case scenarios a lot of the times, and I find that so helpful. Well, she'll go through, she'll introduce the patient to you and be like, what are we gonna do? And then she'll talk you through her rationale of why you're going to choose this medication or why this side effect is something you need to look out for. And that for me is just the best way of teaching. She was creative, she had amazing ways of memorizing things. Like her method for teaching you heart murmurs, I will never forget it in my life. And it was amazing. In case you can't tell, kind of geeking out. I really liked her audio files. If I hadn't already paid the $450 for the Fitzgerald one, I would have just bought this because her information is so great, and she is an engaging speaker. I loved the fact that it was audio files, so you could be doing like the dishes or walking your dog or in the car and listening to these. If you're gonna do kind of a written book work one and then an audio one, I would totally recommend her audio one. I can't really speak to like her in-person one. I'm sure it's great. She seems like a really great speaker, and she does all her own speaking events, but I didn't go to any of them. I don't know personally anyone who did, so I can't like give you a firm recommendation, but her audio files, perf. And then something I think is a helpful add-on is Facebook groups. So this is something I kind of happily randomly stumbled upon. For any NP certifying exam you are taking, there's probably a Facebook group. So I would just search for yours. Mine was the AANP ANCC study group. And this is technically for family and adult gero. A lot of it was family. I'll be honest, there were some adult gero on there, but a lot of the content was family. But I mean, I think it would be helpful no matter which one you were in. And it's just people on there kind of asking each other questions. They'll post like, hey, what's this? Or what's the rationale behind this? Everybody kind of bounces ideas off of each other. They give you tips that like, I took the exam and this is what I thought was really helpful, what they found helpful in studying. There are tutors that post on there where I think it's like $40 to $60 for a tutoring session, and they kind of go over their own version of like, this is what I would totally study for the test. One of my really good friends did one of their sessions, and she said it was amazing. There are different files in the Facebook groups where people will put their own study guides up of like, this is what I was studying, and everyone just shares information. It's a great open market of like knowledge. Be careful though, because obviously it's not regulated by anyone. So I mean, you don't always know don't just go by these people's study guides, because I've looked at some of them and they were kind of wrong. So I didn't really look at those files as much, but I did look at just kind of like questions people were throwing around, or like people would give rationales, or even like case studies that they had seen kind of in clinic examples, and people would give their rationale. And it was just a good back and forth community to kind of get out there, and something you could look at real quick on your phone, because who isn't on Facebook every now and then? Okay, so final plan. If I could do it all over again, here's what I would do. I would buy the Leak Book, an app. Again, I'll list that down in the description box below. I cannot recommend that enough. I would do kind of what I did. I would start maybe a little bit earlier, kind of crunched it, but I would read through it. I would highlight what was important. I would write down the exam tips, keep those for later, and review those, the day before, 2 days before the exam. Go through the book maybe twice. Go through all the questions on the app. Really make sure you know the content before you put in that kind of know or the totally know area. Read through all of the rationales when you're going through the questions. This is huge. That teaches you so much. And just give yourself enough time to do all of that without feeling rushed. Number 2, I would get the Holly A audio files. Again, super loved her, thought she was really creative. I think having a writing component, which would be the Leak Book, and then the audio format with the Holly A audio files would be perfect, because you're having something you're looking at and then something you're just kind of passively listening to. My really good friend listened to the Holly A files twice and did the Leak Book, and she said that was an awesome combination. And listening to it twice and kind of reading through it twice was perfect, she said, because then you kind of caught things you didn't get the first time. I only listened to my Fitzgerald one once, and I read through the book once and but even if you can only do it once, I think having an audio and a visual would be. The third thing I would do is, if it's helpful for you or you're having an area you just cannot memorize and get through your noggin for whatever reason, for me that's Pharm, I would do the Picmonic thing. Again, you can either pay for like a premium membership where you get everything and you can pay for like a month or something, or you can do the free version where you get like one section a day and just do it for the areas that you really need to understand. Antibiotics, antihypertensives, whatever you're really struggling with, it is so helpful for your straight memorization. And then the fourth thing, sign up in the Facebook group. It's free. You just have to join the group and just kind of see what people are talking about. It kind of refreshes your memory without you really having to do too much. I liked it. Again, don't rely on that as your only study method, but look through the files, just see what people have to say. Sometimes people will post on there like, this is what I remember from the exam. That's cool. Thanks. And again, it's free. Who doesn't like free? So let's just really quick talk about when to start studying. So I took my exam 7 weeks after I graduated, and I think that's a pretty good mark. You gave yourself plenty of time. You have like 6 or 7 weeks. You can study like an hour or so a day. I studied for about an hour to 2 hours a day for the first 4 weeks, maybe 5. And then after that, I bumped my studying up to like 3 or 4 hours a day. Pretty much did it every day, just kind of consistently, like lugging along, and it worked out pretty well. Again, I stopped the night before, day before, even if you need to. Just give your brain a rest. Try to get a good night's sleep the night before. Whatever you do not wait until the very end, because there is so much information. The scope of these tests is so large that there's just no way you're going to be able to cram it in. And this is talking from a crammer. Guys, I procrastinate like nobody's business. This is the first thing I really haven't procrastinated from. Pretty proud. And that really paid off. So those are my tips for how to study for your Nurse Practitioner Boards Exam, again, specifically the Family Nurse Practitioner Certifying Board Exam. So the question of the day is, if you haven't taken it, what are you most worried about when taking your NP Boards Exam? Or two, if you took it, what's your best tip for passing the boards exam on the first try if you have taken it? Again, if you're new here, I'm Liz. I make videos just like this once a week and then a weekly vlog. So if you're interested, make sure to subscribe. I would love to have you. Hope this was helpful for some of you guys who have your boards exam coming up soon. You guys are gonna do great. Don't even worry. And I'll see everybody next time. Bye.